Okay, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that it's been a very tough few years for my alma mater, the University of Southern California. We have deans doing meth and drugs with prostitutes on campus. We have billion-dollar settlements, incredibly serious for other issues. Then, unfortunately, the Varsity Blues case. And now we have deans getting indicted in bribery scandals with politicians. It's very unfortunate, and things need to get better. I want to bring attention to this bribery case because it is something the government is bringing so much attention to, and they're always going to bring attention to officials they believe are skirting the laws for their own benefit and the benefit of their family. So before I get into this case study, thank you for watching this video on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're listening to our podcast, Prison Professors. We know you're busy and we're grateful. So let's just jump right in and talk about this new indictment coming out of Los Angeles. Powerful LA politician indicted in bribery scheme. As just mentioned, public corruption is consistently among the top law enforcement priorities for the FBI. Some would argue that the number one priority, certain areas like New York and Los Angeles, where contracts and there's just so much rigging and things of that nature going on. In March 2020, the FBI posted that public corruption is their number one priority. Well, why is that? The FBI says the reason is that public corruption breaches the trust society places on federal, state, or local officials. Also, corrupt officials undermine our national security and our confidence in government, costing us billions of dollars along the way. The FBI believes that public corruption can harm virtually every aspect of our society. Bribery, of course, is amongst the most common indictment that's going to come for a politician. When I look at prison professors, politicians we've worked with over the years, it's bribery, it's honest services fraud, and indeed these are the indictments that come here. A couple of tax cases too over the years that had to actually deal with bribery. They got the cash, they didn't report it, boom, there's the tax evasion as well. Bad things come when you do bad things and you put your own interests above the people that elected you, and you bring a lot of embarrassment and shame to universities like my alma mater, which is like a stock that was 80 and it's at 40 and 30, and you try to buy the dip to 35 and you wake up and it's like a 37 cents. So it can only go to zero. At some point, USC needs to get its act together. And I say that as an alum of the school that I love and spent a lot of time in and lecturing in the business school. The irony, perhaps my ethics lectures aren't quite getting through. Let's continue. The discussion in this case has to deal with Mark Ridley-Thomas and a former dean for participating in a bribery scheme. Let's get to exactly what the FBI said, and they're very famous. These Department of Justice press releases, they love the press releases. They love to put it out there. They love for people to talk about it. They love for people to share it. They want everyone to know if you break the law, we're going to punish you, and we're going to begin this government investigation after the indictment with really beginning to ruin your reputation, the embarrassment, the shaming. Oftentimes, the hardest part of the process is not actually prison. It's time before you go to prison. I mean, imagine what Mark Ridley-Thomas is enduring right now. He still has his job. People are going to immediately on the right immediately be arguing that he resigned immediately. There goes the salary and hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees the city isn't going to cover. Then you have even those on the left. Am I getting the left and right? You get it. You have those even in his own party probably arguing, well, it's his decision. You're innocent until proven guilty. But how are you really going to legislate and do things when you're under federal indictment? All good points. So the fallout for him, it's coming, and he hasn't even considered going to trial or pleading guilty yet. It is fresh and new, and it's brutal. I know, because everyone on our team has gone through a government investigation, and it's tough. We want to educate and inform and teach people the consequences of bad conduct, but also put them on a path to do better. Let Mark Ridley-Thomas and the 83-year-old dean who was indicted, let them know what they can do to get on the best path to get the best outcome. Probably starts with accepting responsibility, that you'd be stunned how many people who know they're guilty, know they're going to lose, go to trial. We're kind of seeing that in the Elizabeth Holmes case. But I don't want to digress into Elizabeth Holmes. We've covered her enough, and we're going to continue to cover that case. Let's get back to exactly what the FBI said. This investigation should send a message to public officials that government contracts are not for sale. The investigation also reaffirms the FBI's commitment to rooting out corruption by holding those who abuse the trust of the people they serve and who exploit their powerful positions to obtain benefits at the expense of taxpayers. Now, who is Mark Ridley-Thomas? Pretty powerful dude. He's one of the most powerful and best-known politicians in Southern California. He earned his Ph.D. in social ethics and policy analysis from SC in '89. Is anyone besides me catching the irony of an ethics degree from USC and then embroiled in a federal investigation? Look, he graduated in 89. That's more than 30 years ago. What you say, what you learn in a college classroom may be different than what you see in business every single day. And over time, with power and privilege and people kowtowing to him in predictable fashion, what happens is you think you're kind of God in some cases. You think you can get away with anything. You rationalize this isn't for the interest of the city, even though in this case it may actually benefit my son. So ironically enough, something I lecture on a great deal at USC is ethics. And we talk about this fraud triangle. So as you'll learn about in this indictment, he was facing pressures to help his son, who had gone through some, what I read, Me Too investigations. And you begin to rationalize ways to help the son, but also help the city. And then, of course, the opportunity is working with a dean. The dean's lawyer will say, oh, she didn't benefit. She didn't make any money. But you don't commit the crime necessarily to make money. It could be to advance your career. It could be to impress people, to show this is what I did for the university. This is what I did for the city. So you can expect the dean, if she goes to trial, her lawyers will argue by saying she didn't take a penny. She didn't make anything on this. That's not the case. Our team has had insider trading clients who literally gave a tip and didn't make a penny from it. They gave the tip to show off, to show they had the knowledge to help a buddy. Nothing in return. They got indicted, and guess what happened to them? They were standing for count in federal prison. So these arguments, like Elizabeth Holmes, to come back to that, her lawyer said, oh, she didn't have intent. It doesn't matter. What'd she do? In this case, they'll say the 83-year-old dean didn't make any money. Doesn't matter. What did she do? And of course, they're going to refer to emails and text messages. They got a lot of evidence. And in this case, to USC's credit, they actually alerted the FBI to the alleged wrongdoing a few years ago. So while USC has been embroiled in scandal, and it's just gone down a very bad path for a long time, they did the right thing here. A whistleblower alerted them, and they immediately turned it over to the FBI. So USC, they did some of the right things here. Continuing. Ridley-Thomas and Marilyn Louise Flynn, a former tenured professor and the dean of the USC School of Social Work, are named as defendants in the 20-count indictment. The government claims that the veteran politician traded official actions in exchange for the benefits of his son, Sebastian, in 2017 and 2018. Sebastian Thomas received benefits from USC, such as graduate school admission, a full tuition scholarship, and a paid professorship, among other things. USC ultimately fired Sebastian Thomas after someone raised questions regarding his hiring. No kidding. Councilman Thomas was in an influential position to award contracts to the USC of Social Work. Specifically, the School of Social Work would receive millions of dollars in new revenues by providing services to the Department of Children and Family Services and the Probation Department. Also, the city favorably amended an existing contract between the School of Social Work and Department of Mental Health. So as aforementioned, yes, I said her lawyers are going to argue that she didn't benefit. But there's another benefit, as I just read here, right? I just read, if I can find it here right in front of me, that the School of Social Work would receive millions of dollars in new revenues. Well, that's the win for her, right? Perhaps at 83, after a tenured professor and successful investments, perhaps, and other income and net worth, the benefit may not be money. This is it. This is part of her legacy, that she would leave millions of dollars or bring in millions of dollars for the School of Social Work, right? So that's the benefit. And that's what the prosecution is going to focus on, not this ridiculous notion that she didn't benefit, therefore she didn't do anything wrong. The case against Mark Ridley-Thomas and Marilyn Flynn presents the typical public corruption scenario in which politicians trade official public action for benefits to himself and the family. And Flynn, the dean from USC, found a university administrator willing to bend the rules of fair play in order to secure lucrative contracts for the city. It takes two to tango, as they say in these conspiracies, and oftentimes people who never imagined they would do anything wrong end up making bad decisions via emails and winks and favors, all under the guise of the public good, all under the guise of the university. And the fact that I may benefit or my son may benefit, hey, that's just part of the process, but that's not really why I'm doing it. It's for USC. It's for the city. That's what allows them to sleep at night. That's what allows them to function and go on their day. Because if they were to focus on the bad and the wrong, one, they may not do it, and two, it may make them sick, because you don't feel good when you do bad things. It doesn't, unless you're like nuts. But when you do bad things, do you feel good? I know I don't. So you want to do the right things, or you convince yourself that the wrong thing is actually good and it serves the public good. At the time of the scheme, USC's School of Social Work was facing a multi-million-dollar budget deficit, which threatened the school's viability, as well as Flynn's position and reputation as the school's longtime dean. So again, this kind of comes back to the pressure, or to the pressure aspect of it. The fact that her lawyer is saying online, well, she didn't benefit, that was of no significance to her. The school was facing a shortfall. They weren't fundraising. And so doing it questions her ability as a leader and as a dean. Also, you have to wonder how a school like USC, that is the fundraising. I mean, this school raises money. Like their endowment is so large. No school within that university or no department should ever be to fundraising. Having some trouble communicating this morning, which is not good when you're a public speaker. But you understand the point that I'm making. I want to continue to stress it's of zero value that she didn't get paid. There were other benefits to her. And again, Flynn was under pressure, and all she had to do to relieve the pressure was to secure a graduate school scholarship and a job for his son. So think about that, right? There's the philosophical phrase that said the greatest good for the greatest number. Think about that. Well, the greatest good for the greatest number, that some people in that suffer. Some people may not, really benefit from that. Perhaps it's society, other students who aren't getting a graduate level scholarship, who didn't get into the school, who are working 3 or 4 jobs to try to get in, but they do it under the guise of the public good. So why is it a big deal if, but we just need to give a scholarship to his son? That's fine. We're going to bring millions of dollars. We're at a shortfall. This is really going to help show that I'm able to lead this effective. This is going to help many, many, many more people. Big deal if we just help one person. These are the rationalizations. Flynn was under so much pressure, she was willing to overlook the fact that it is a violation of USC policy. Don't let policy or violations get in the way of the greater good. Don't let violations or policy get in the way of bringing in millions of dollars when the department is facing a shortfall. And these are things you're going to hear her lawyers argue if she goes to trial, or mitigating components besides her age and the fact she didn't make money. That is certainly a mitigating factor, but it's not an excuse to say that she's innocent or she shouldn't be held accountable. I want to be very clear about that. Mitigation, age, as I just mentioned, health issues, that she didn't benefit, probably a lifetime of distinguished work other than this out of character moment. So there are myriad mitigating factors this former dean will pursue, but none of them excuse the fact that the government alleges she broke the law. And of course, in this country, you're guilty until proven guilty. Just joking. You are guilty until proven guilty, though some will say you're innocent until proven guilty. Both Ridley-Thomas and Flynn each face one count of conspiracy and bribery, and they face myriad counts of mail and wire fraud. Each conspiracy count could result in 5 years in prison. Bribery is 10 years. Fraud is 20 years in prison. Continuing, Flynn also agreed to funnel $100,000 to Ridley-Thomas's campaign through the university to a nonprofit that Sebastian would operate. All bad things. It goes bad, then it gets worse, and you kind of get away with it, and you think you're fine, and nobody's watching. Before you know it, you've engaged in so many federal crimes, the sentencing guidelines potentially go through the roof. At the end of this video, I'm going to give my opinion on what's going to happen here. The FBI learned of potential corruption in this case through the cooperation of USC. My alma mater did the right thing. In a statement following the indictments, USC said when it learned in the summer of 2018 about the $100,000 payment referenced in the indictment, the university disclosed the issue to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the university has cooperated ever since. They did the right thing. The FBI investigates public corruption with the use of sophisticated tools and methods. Yeah. They have all our taxpayer resources to do whatever they want to ferret out crime and fraud and all that good stuff. To conclude, the FBI publicly acknowledged that the vast majority of public officials are honest and do the right thing. However, a small number go rogue, go in the wrong direction, succumb to pressures and opportunities and rationalizations, hurt themselves and their family and the community and the people they were elected to serve. My prediction in the USC case, I'm going to tell you. Here it comes. They're both going to plead guilty. Let me say that again. I'm torn on this. I'm changing my opinion. I think the politician pleads guilty. It would not surprise me if the former dean went to trial, because even if she lost, I don't think a judge is going to send an 83-year-old woman, or probably 84 or 5 if it went to trial, to prison. I just don't see it coming. So her lawyers, who will probably make $1 million, could argue, look, the sentencing guidelines on this are very low. You're 84 years old. I don't think they're going to send you to prison. We think you can prevail. I mean, they may actually be telling her, we think you can win. You didn't make any money. We think you can prevail. And even if you lose, I don't think they're going to send an 84-year-old woman to prison. Let's roll the dice. Politicians do tend to like to go to trial. They like to maintain their innocence. It's odd as this horn is honking somewhere behind me. I'm sorry. In this case, I think he's going to plead guilty. And even though the guidelines won't be excessive because of his role as an elected official and the distrust that it creates in the community, it's the reason that politicians can get several years in prison. In some cases, even when the loss amount is very, very small. And by white collar crime standards, I wouldn't argue that the loss amount here is, incredibly massive. But because he's an elected official, much like doctors who have a license get significantly longer prison terms than someone they may have paid a kickback to who is not a doctor who is also culpable, that medical license changes things. Being an elected official changes things. So my prediction here on the 15th of October 2021, he pleads, she goes to trial, he goes to prison, she doesn't. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to this video on YouTube. And if you're on Prison Professors podcast while rolling through traffic somewhere in this country, you're awesome. We're grateful. We want to teach and inspire and inform. And of course, visit prisonprofessors.com to learn more about the ways we're helping people prepare, overcome the collateral consequences that accompany indictment in prison term, and learning strategies created in part by my business partner, Michael Santos. He did 26 years in prison, creating strategies to overcome this wretched, weird, odd criminal justice system. Have a great day.